I just checked. I have not received it. Let me recheck.
It's gone to Ira's email.
Oh, okay.
I haven't received it as well, but let me refresh the page. Yes, I just received it. Thank you, Commodore.
Thank you.
So this is only the two video, and you will be presenting the presentation by yourself.
Yes, so there's just two videos. If you could
Okay.
just play them before I start my presentation, and thereafter I'll rest of the things I'll speak because the presentation is too large. It doesn't seem to be going. It's more than 25
All right,
MB.
of course. Of course.
Okay.
Selamat siang, Ibu Aisyah Pak Gotma. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Is this better? Because now I am connecting through my laptop.
It
Yes,
is
this
actually better, but
there is still a bit of
a feedback,
echo.
a feedback on your voice. Yes,
Right.
an
So there is a
echo.
bit of an echo, but much better.
If there is a feedback, probably there are more than one devices open or operating in the same room.
Yes, sir. In fact, our normal audio video is not working well, so I logged in through my laptop.
Yeah, and now we can hear you properly.
Yes, so I'm speaking from my laptop, but there appears to be an echo too. We'll try to identify.
Yeah.
Okay, Mbak Ira, Jeremiah, you ready?
Yes, I think we can begin.
Yeah, Jeremiah. All right, thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Adi.
Yeah, sorry, before we start, there are few Indian MOD and industry partners who are trying to log in from India. They are waiting for the host to accept it. You may start the webinar and parallelly allow them to also join.
Right, that is noted, Captain Chief. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, and Salam Kebajikan. Namaste to everyone, and good afternoon to all distinguished guests. The Ambassador of India to the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Sandeep Chakravorty, and all Mission to Jakarta staff and representatives, the Board of Advisors of Indo-Pacific Strategic Intelligence, our speakers for today, Captain Shiv Kumar, Defense Attaché for the Indian Mission in Indonesia, Mr. Makmur Kaliat from the Indonesian Committee for Defense Industry Policies, Commodore Arun Pratap Kalaya, representing the National Maritime Forum of India, Major General Retired Jan Peter Ate, Chairman of the National Private Defense Industry Association of Indonesia, representatives from the National Maritime Forum of India,
This meeting is being recorded and summarized.
Director of Indo-Pacific Strategic Intelligence, Dr. Kyuri Maharani, and all other esteemed guests coming in today. My name is 𝙄𝙣𝙙𝙙𝙤 and I will be your Master of Ceremony in today's seminar titled Bridging Forces, Unlocking Indonesia and India's Defense Industry Cooperation. Before we start, we'd just like to remind everyone to please turn on their cameras and kindly mute their microphones while their speakers going in, to respect and also make sure that the event today can go smoothly. As a growing significant actor in the defense industry, India is proving to be a strategic and suitable partner for Indonesia, especially as a country guided with the free and active principle in its foreign policy outlook. From the BrahMos, 𝙂𝙀🖏series missiles, and various others, the potential between both can really be amplified into significant levels. As a force aiming to provide insights and bridge defense actors in the Indo-Pacific region, 𝙬𝙤 today, therefore, is holding this webinar in hopes that through the insights received via this webinar, defense actors and policymakers, alongside enthusiasts and the general public in both Indonesia and India, can fully gain insights on the potential collaboration capacity between both countries. Before we start, we would also like to inform all participants that this event will be recorded and streamed to YouTube. And now, without further ado, we would like to start the event by singing Indonesia and India's national anthem. To the operator, please assist us with the screen.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन जनगणमङ्गलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे।
Thank you very much, operator. Now, amongst us here, we are also very grateful for the companion of the Ambassador of the Republic of India to Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Sandeep Chakravorty, and their esteemed delegation. To help us open this event, we would like to invite Your Excellency or his representatives to give his opening remarks. To His Excellency, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Jeremiah, for conducting this event. I want to begin by wishing everybody from Indonesia and from India Ramadan Kareem and greetings on the fasting month. And thank you for organizing this stakeholder consultation. I want to thank 𝐼𝐶. I want to thank their MOU partners, NMF, Indian and Indonesian experts, representatives from MOD, from different think tanks, defense industry, for joining this. And I also want to thank Captain Shiv-Kumar for putting this together. I can see him in the embassy right there, and all others who have joined this stakeholder consultation. I think it's a very significant topic, and for the first time ever, 𝐼𝐶 is conducting a research on India and Indonesian defense industry, their synergies, how we can support each other. And I think this is one area, it's a new area, it's an emerging area, and this area is getting strengthened by the day. And we got a boost when the visited India recently as chief guest of our National Day, our Republic Day on January 26th. And as you are aware, there was some discussion between our leaders, and it was agreed that India and Indonesia will cooperate in the defense sector, particularly with respect to defense industries. I don't want to get into much details because there are experts here, and I'm sure they will be discussing and sharing their views, their insights. But I had a preliminary discussion with the 𝐼𝐶 team, which is doing the research, and I'm very encouraged by their scope of research and their partnership with NMF. I just want to highlight a few points which I think are very important for both India and Indonesia. The point number one is that both India and Indonesia have been recipients or purchasers of defense technologies, defense systems, defense equipment from a variety of countries, whether it is Russia, whether it is USA, UK, France, Italy, maybe in the case of Indonesia from some other geographies also. But these have been the primary defense equipment suppliers in the world. And today we have legacy systems, we have systems from all these countries, and many a times there are issues with compatibility, there are issues with interoperability, there are issues with spares, there are issues with technology transfer. And I think I will not be revealing a state secret if I say oftentimes we find that the equipment we have acquired from these developed countries do not function to our expectations. They are suboptimal, they are very expensive, spares are not available, technology transfer doesn't take place, and they are often required to be sent to the home countries for midlife refit, for any kind of upgradation, or for any repairs. So the cost is everlasting. It's not only the cost of the equipment when we buy, the cost is actually throughout the lifetime of the equipment. This is a grave reality that countries like India and Indonesia face. I think it's a matter of concern for both. So I think the discussion that should take place between India and Indonesia is not that India wants to replace other countries as defense supplier. It is actually to share this experience, how India and Indonesia are facing this problem of buying defense equipment from multiple sources, how we are managing an inventory, how we are repairing our equipment, how we are facing the problem of spares. You see, I will give you a very concrete example. Due to the recent war between Ukraine and Russia, spares of Russian equipment are just not available. So many of our systems are not operable. They are just lying there. Our aircraft are not flying, Sukhoi are not flying. Many of our other systems are facing a lot of constraints. Now, how to handle this situation? Can we continue? Can countries, such big countries like India and Indonesia, continue to depend on defense equipment from other powers? This is the fundamental question I think we need to ask. And here I think the lesson of India is very, very important. We have made a very conscious attempt in the last 10 years to develop our defense industry. It's not that we didn't have a defense industry. Our defense industry actually goes back to British India. In fact, one of the first ordnance factories in the world was actually set up near Dum in Calcutta. And in fact, the word dum comes from the firing of the bullet. It makes a sound of dum. So, the airport in Calcutta is known as Dum Airport. It used to be known as Dum Airport. This is the kind of history we have in terms of defense manufacturing in India. And in the past also we used to make ships and other equipment, but due to the colonial rule, all those industries were destroyed, and then they were replaced by colonial industry. But after independence, we were not able to keep up to the expectations that we had, and we relied on foreign defense equipment. And today a situation has come when India has become one of the largest importers of defense equipment. And this is certainly not sustainable. So as I mentioned before, in 2014, a conscious decision was taken by our government under Prime Minister Narendra Modi to start building India's capability in defense. And how it was done? It was done by two ways. One was corporatization of our domestic public sector defense industry. Those were being run as government departments. These have now become companies. There was a lot of resistance from our ordnance factories. They did not want to become companies, but they pushed through, the government pushed through this reform, and now every defense ordnance factory is a company on its own, and they are supposed to be run as corporate entities. So that is one reform. The second reform that happened was defense was opened up to the private sector, and that has shown remarkable results. And today we have a situation when private sector players are playing an important role in India's defense self-reliance. So we have had this experience of the last 10 years in building our defense industry. And today India is becoming a major defense exporter. Our defense exports have crossed $4 to $5 billion in the last year, and it is growing. What we did was that we prepared a negative list. We prepared a negative list of a few hundred items, and we told our industry, we give you 5 years. In 5 years, we will not import this from abroad. You go ahead and make it. And our industry has risen to the challenge, and they have manufactured those items, and those items are now made in India, and then they are exported. Another interesting element of our defense indigenization or defense self-reliance has been the role of startups. We gave startup challenges to young entrepreneurs that this is the problem our defense industry faces. Can you solve it? And several young minds and brilliant minds from all over the world, Indians who had been abroad or those who are in India, they rose to the challenge. And today we have a very, very vibrant startup ecosystem in the defense sector. So my point here to 𝐼𝐶 when you're conducting the study is to see how those experiences can be replicable in Indonesia, how India's own defense industrialization success story can be replicable to Indonesia. Now, why I'm saying this? Because India is in a different category. We are not like Russia, China, UK, France, or USA, where we are trying to export our defense system. We are trying to share our experience of how we have adapted those systems from those countries and made them interoperable. For example, an Indian ship will be made in India. The ship will be made in India, Indian warship, but it will have Russian, German, British, American, even Israeli systems. And our combat management systems are able to integrate, even Turkish system. We are able to integrate all that. And we are, by the day, increasing the percentage of our own defense equipment in the systems that we are running. Something like what you have in TKDN, you have TKDN of 40%. I'm saying, we also have a TKDN formula in our defense industrialization. Slowly and steadily, we are increasing the share of TKDN in our defense industry. And this is what we want to share with you. Somebody mentioned BrahMos. BrahMos also, when we started with BrahMos, it was not so easy. It was quite a Russian loaded technology system. But slowly and slowly, we have been able to indigenize different parts of BrahMos. And today, BrahMos, apart maybe from the engine, is largely an Indian product. Similarly, in other areas, we are able to develop systems in India. We have been able to integrate technologies from all over the world, and we are able to produce in India. This is the experience I think we need to capture. We need to see in your study which Indian defense industry can match with an Indonesian defense industry.
Apologies, His Excellency, I think you're muted. Yes, I think you're audible
Hello?
now. Yeah, you're audible now.
Did you miss everything?
No, just now, just for a
yes.
few seconds.
Okay. I don't know.
It was muted.
I think this is the hand of God. I didn't mute it. It happened on its own. Maybe some people don't want to listen to what I'm saying. maybe people who don't want industrialization, defense industrialization in Indonesia muted me. You see, I'm speaking something which may not be music to the ears of many people, because I am trying to speak the truth. I'm trying to be very bold. I'm trying to be candid, frank with all of you, because I think India and Indonesia are natural partners in this, and this is my message today in this conference, when we are trying to work with each other. The kind of learning that we can offer Indonesia, the kind of support, experience sharing we can do is very, very unique. Before I end, I'll give one more example. You see, we have been building Scorpion submarines in India. We have built 6 Scorpion submarines. We are building 3 more, and now we are also going to have air independent propulsion in our Scorpions. Now, nowhere else in the world, perhaps except in Brazil, in Asia at least, there is no other country which makes the Scorpions. In fact, I believe even France doesn't make Scorpion conventional submarines anymore. Now, this is the huge experience that we have of welding, of integrating the systems, of making submarines in India. What we want to offer to Indonesia, because you are also going ahead with the Scorpion program recently, the French defense minister was here, is to just work with our engineers, see how you can shorten the learning curve, how you can produce your Scorpions in a quicker period of time, how we can share with you the problems we faced, how we can train your engineers. I have even told Pettepal that send your engineers, when we are building a Scorpion, send your engineers to Mazgon Dock in Bombay, and let them see how the Scorpions are being built in India by Indian engineers. And we could work out a tripartite agreement with France. So this is the kind of value that Indian defense industry can bring to Indonesia. And I think there is need to work on it, to take action. To whosoever I have spoken, whether it is the defense minister of Indonesia, to think tanks, to the military, everybody sees value in this. What we need now is action, and I think this study that you are doing, when you present it to the stakeholders, I think should help in moving from just talk to walking the talk. So this is the message that I would like to give, and once again thank ISI for putting together this amazing group of people for today's workshop, and I wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing your final report. Thank you. Terima kasih banyak.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your remarks. Next, we would like to also hear some opening remarks from the Executive Director of Indo-Pacific Strategic Intelligence, Dr. Q.Ry Maharani. To Dr. Q.Ry, you have the screen.
Thank you, Jerry. Ambassador of the Indian Mission to Indonesia, His Excellency Sandeep Chakraborty, Boards of Advisors in the Pacific Strategic Intelligence, distinguished speakers, Dr. Mahmoud Khaled from KKIP, who is also my teacher and my former boss, Commodore Arun Pratap representing the National Maritime Forums of India Foundation, A good friend of mine, Bapak Major General retired 𝙄𝙤𝙙𝙤, Chairman of the Pinhantanas, and lastly, our dearest friend, Captain Shiv-Kumar, Defense Attaché for the Indian Mission in Indonesia. Colleagues from National Maritime Foundations of India, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for joining the first webinar. This is jointly organized by ISI and NMF. And this event would not be possible without the staunch support of the Indian Mission in Indonesia and Nusantara Foundation. As Bapak Sandeep has mentioned before, India and Indonesia, we are sharing maritime borders, but we have long operated at arm's length when it comes to defense cooperation. Well, we inked a defense cooperation agreement in 2018. The strategic relationship remained undeveloped until now. Yet the current geopolitical landscape presents compelling reasons to change that. Now, I would like to propose 3 factors why Indonesia and India should cooperate closer. First, Russia's foreign role as the dominant arms supplier in Southeast Asia has forced India and Indonesia to further diversify. Both countries' growing defense industries make each other viable alternatives, particularly India in missile technology and Indonesia in aircraft technology. And the second, China's increasingly assertive posture in the South China Sea and US transactional foreign policy under President Trump leaves Indonesia seeking partners who can respect its principle of free and active foreign policy. India, we believe, with its strategic autonomy and long-standing naval presence in the Indo-Pacific, is well placed to fill that role. And third, Prime Minister Modi's leadership's India's 𝐼𝐧𝐝 policy actually fits nicely with Indonesia's good neighborhood policy under President Subianto. Ladies and gentlemen, in ISI, we believe that India could fill the niche by serving as a critical partner for Indonesia's military modernization, particularly in maintaining Russia's origin hardware and import substitution of foreign arms. And more importantly, India offers a middle path, less encumbered by great power competition with China far the west. Yet, challenges remains. India has yet to build sufficient momentum in its defense ties with Indonesia. And moreover, Indonesia's evolving military priorities, balancing increased defense spending with a broader security role such as food estates and nutritious food for students, create both opportunities and distractions. To capitalize the opportunities, the institutional mechanism for cooperation between both countries, India and Indonesia, must be strengthened. And given a rather slow progress at the government level, it is important to utilize other diplomatic actors and channels, which includes think tank and industries. This is why we believe this event is important, not just to fill the gap, but also as a catalyst to progress. Ladies and gentlemen, let me share with you the happiness that the event is actually coincides with our first anniversary of Indo-Pacific Strategic Intelligence, or ISI, on March 8, 2025. ISI in Bahasa Indonesia means to fill. We have a long-term vision to be a force multiplier for the government in defense and foreign policy sectors. In the past 12 months, ISI has signed MOUs with domestic and international partners. We've been invited to take part in important dialogues across the region, for example, from one-half-track dialogues between India and Indonesia in Mumbai to the Manila dialogues on South China Sea in the Pacific. ISI has also published strategic insights and policy memos. In fact, today, 2 of our insightful pieces about defense diplomacy with India and Turkey have been published in the Strategies Australia and the Jakarta Post. And this webinar is actually a testament that ISI is ready to play a bigger role as a bridge builder, providing platform to enable confidence building measures, capacity buildings, as well as defense industrial cooperation, which are the hallmarks of the Indonesia's defense diplomacy. Now, I would like to thank you to the management team of ISI, led by Ibu Aira, our Director of Research, who have been meticulously planned the event, and also to our Indian partners, NMF. And this seminar, as Pak Duta Besar said, is actually the kickstart of a research project sponsored by the Indian Mission in Indonesia that aim to produce insights on the Indonesia-India defense cooperation. And we also aim to establish dataset on both countries' defense industrial system. We hope this research will help to lay a stronger foundation for the advancement of bilateral defense industrial cooperation between Indonesia and India. I wish you a very fruitful seminar. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Dr. Curie, for your remarks. Now, as mentioned by Dr. Curie, 𝐸𝐶 is celebrating its anniversary in just 2 days. And as mentioned, 𝐸𝐶 has been deeply engaged in several activities aimed at becoming a force multiplier for good regarding the defense postures of nations in the Indo-Pacific. Now, to commemorate our achievements and also progress this last year, we would like to now look at how 𝐸𝐶 has progressed through a video that has been prepared. To the operator, kindly assist us with the screen. Thank you very much, operator. Now, before we begin our discussions today, we would now like to take some pictures to commemorate this session. To everyone, kindly turn on your camera and the operator will assist us in taking the pictures before we move on to the core of our discussions. To the operator, you have the cue.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you please turn on your camera? Okay. On my mark. 1, 2, 3. Wait a minute. Let's take another picture. 1, 2, 3. Another picture again, because there is a lot of participants. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you for your times.
Thank you very much, operator. And thank you everyone for their participation. Once again, to His Excellency, we would like to again convey our regards and gratitude for your support and also participation in our event. We would like to now proceed to the core of our webinar, which is the discussion session, of which it will be moderated by Ms. Aisyah Rashidila Kusuma Sumantri, MSc, or more usually known as Ms. Aira. Ms. Aira is the Director of Research of 𝐸𝐶, and she's also part-time caricature and webtoon too. She obtained her master's degree in International Relations and Security Studies from the University of Glasgow in 2016, and her bachelor's degree in International Relations from the University of Indonesia. Without further ado, to Ms. Aira, the screen and floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jeremiah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Namaskar, Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, dan Salam Kebajikan. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for your participation. And before we start this discussion, I think we will start to talk about like an important yet rarely discussed topics, which titled Bridging Forces, Unlocking Indonesia-India Defense Cooperations. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we all know that both Indonesia and India are located in the Indo-Pacific region. But in Indonesia itself, the discourse of Indo in the Indo-Pacific is rarely discussed. Some people even mistook it for Indonesia, but it's actually not. It stands for India. And I think today's webinar is the first step in forging towards that discourse among scholars, among government and private institutions. And I'm hopeful that this discussion could spark a stronger relations between both countries. And as previously mentioned, I think in the recent years, India has emerged as a potential partner for Indonesia, and it has shown a remarkable process, especially in producing forest defense technology, and it aims to expand its market to the Southeast Asia region. And likewise for Indonesia, I think based on the free and active foreign policy and potential defense collaborations with India, it could become a highly advantageous strategy for Indonesia's growing defense industry. So ladies and gentlemen, today Indo-Pacific Strategic Intelligence in collaboration with the Indian Embassy and National Maritime Foundation will explore on how both Indonesia and India perceive this collaboration as something that could benefit both parties through this webinar. So has joined us 4 speakers that will share their expertise on the subject. Dr. Makmur 𝙘𝙘𝙘, Commodore Arun Golaya, retired Major General John Peter Ate, and Captain Shiv Kumar. Each of the speakers will give us around like 15 minutes of presentation, and we will proceed to continue with the Q&A in the end of the session. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we'll introduce the first speaker. Webinar is Dr. 𝙬𝙙𝙙 Industry Policy, or KKIP. He's also a lecturer at the actually awesome for Asia. All of us are taught by Dr. Makmur 𝙘𝙘𝙘. So this is actually a rare occasion in which we could share a floor with Dr. Makmur 𝙘𝙘𝙘. So we're very happy today. So Dr. Makmur 𝙘𝙘𝙘 obtained his bachelor's degree from UPN Veteran University and doctorandus from Gajah Mada University. And he also acquired his doctorate from the Jawaharlal Nehru University, India. So he has like an Indian background, and so we're actually very excited to hear his insights on the defense industry cooperation between Indonesia and India. To Dr. Makmur 𝙘𝙘𝙘, the floor is yours. Dr. Makmur, are you here with us?
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Makmur, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Next slide. Next slide. Yes. My presentation actually try to answer 3 questions. The first question is, why do India and Indonesia need to strengthen its defense cooperation, especially defense industrial cooperation? The second question is, why is it not easy for 2 countries to improve their defense cooperation? And the third question is, what policy measures we need to decide in the future to improve bilateral defense cooperation? Let me try to answer the first question. In my view, defense cooperation between 2 countries is a product of political decision. It is not a product of merely business decision. My argument is very simple. Defense industrial cooperation would be very difficult to imagine if the 2 countries are in hostile relation. So the first requirement for cooperation, especially in defense, the 2 countries should not have a dispute or military conflict. If this argument is used, I think there is no doubt that there is a strong foundation for two countries to strengthen its defense industrial cooperation. Both India and Indonesia do not have territorial dispute. Another reason is that both countries have a similar platform in foreign policy issue. Both countries are members of non-aligned movement. And the third reason is that both countries also have a policy ambition to become less and less dependent on foreign suppliers. Both Indonesia and India have ambition not only to become a buyer, but also a builder of weapon and defense equipment. Another reason is both countries have a kind of diplomacy emphasizing the importance of regional institution. So they have a similar policy insofar as dispute is concerned. They are promoting the idea of the importance of regional institution. That is the reason that both India and Indonesia have become a member of a number of institutions evolving in the Indo-Pacific region. India has become part of ASEAN Plus One. India has become a part of East Asia Summit. And I think these foundations are very strong for two countries to promote their defense cooperation. And another important thing is both Indonesia and India are not members of a US and its allies, because both countries have emphasized the importance of independent foreign policy. So both India and Indonesia are not part of US and its allies. And both Indonesia and India also do not have an ambition to become a revisionist. So I think there is a lot of space, a wide space for two countries to improve their cooperation, including in defense industrial cooperation. That is also the reason I think last year Indonesia has taken a decision to make it easy to improve the relation by signing not only document, but it has been transformed into a law. So bilateral relationship now has become a law, and so there is a kind of umbrella now how to promote the defense cooperation. But why it is not easy to improve the relations, despite we have all this, Why? Let us see the next slide. Next slide, please. Yes. I think one of the reasons why it is difficult is because both Indonesia and India are not main player in defense industry landscape. I think the status or the ranking of India is a bit better because I think there are 2 or 3 Indian companies are in the list of 100 arm producing companies. None from Indonesia is in the list. So India, despite the fact that India companies has better achievement at the level of companies, but it's only 2 companies are considered as a main player. The large part of main player is from United States. We have 41 companies, China 9, United Kingdom 7. So we are not a main player. The second constraint is related to the ownership and the tier of the defense industrial company. In our database, both India and Indonesia have shown the fact that the main player at the national company is state-owned. Despite the fact that we have a large number of private companies in Indonesia, but I think they are quite new. The old players are from state-owned. Similar to this issue, I think India also is largely state-owned company. You have a private company, but only 23%. So this needs to be changed. The reason is very simple. If we look at the global level, we can see that there is a large number of private companies. They are big companies. So state-owned should not be too strong. There should be a new policy of promoting private company. Why? Because a lot of innovation also now are taking place in a private sector. So there is a need to improve the cooperation between state-owned and private-owned. In terms of budget also, next slide please. No, next. Yes. No, next slide. Yeah. If we look at the defense budget, then I think India is better compared to Indonesia, because in terms of defense budget ratio to GDP, India is better, larger. Indonesia is still struggling hard. The government has set an agenda to improve or to increase defense budget ratio to GDP. And you know, when we are dealing with the producer, with the company, they will look at first how big is the market for defense, and the reference is to the state budget. If there is a projection that GDP is getting higher and the ratio to GDP, defense ratio to GDP is becoming or is projected to become higher, then we can convince private sector or global companies to come in because they see certainty, policy certainty in the future. Next slide, please. And now, what should be done then? From the perspective of Indonesia, we have and priorities. So if India would like to cooperate with Indonesia, we need to focus on their priorities. So we have a priority on jet fighter, radar, military satellites, rocket, underwater sensor, submarines, propellant, medium tank, UAV, and guided missile. So, because it has been decided by government to promote these 10 sectors, so there is a corridor. I think it is good to focus on that corridor. And of course, there is an obstacle. And the main obstacle, as I told you, is policy certainty. Policy certainty in terms of economics, in terms also to make document into reality. It is easy to sign a document, to sign a strategic partnership document, but it is not easy to implement it. So there is a kind of, there is a need to, what I say is a policy commitment by two countries. So having said this, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me for this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Makmur, for the insightful presentation. I think there are some interesting points that you stated regarding how like defense industry cooperation is more into like a political decision, and it is not actually like a merely business decision, and that Indonesia shares many similarities in international political stances in the international system, as well as how Indonesia is dominated by state-owned company. It's similar to India, and it needs to be changed. Probably we will also talk about this topic when we hear a presentation from Commodore 𝙤𝙤𝙙𝙤 𝙤𝙤𝙙𝙤. So I think I would like to introduce our second speaker for today, Commodore 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤. So Commodore 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤 served in the Indian Navy for almost 30 years, where he commanded 3 ships and leading a key naval innovation initiative, including the Technology Development Acceleration Cell under NIIO. A recipient of the 𝙬𝗍𝙙 Medal, he has contributed extensively to maritime strategy through research and publication. So post-retirement, he mentors startup, advises on defense innovations, and support nation-building efforts. So fun fact about Commodore 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤 is through mostly seen in a series Avatar as an innovation evangelist and author, he's actually known for tormenting other people with his wacky sense of humor and dead jokes. We wouldn't mind if you want to add some dead jokes and slip in some dead jokes into your presentation. It should be like very delightful. So without further ado, participant, please welcome Commodore 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤. Commodore 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And before I start, could I just request you to play those 2 videos? And there's a reason why I've chosen those 2 videos. So we'll see the videos first. They're just about a minute each, and then I'll start with my presentation. Thank you very much. First, a small correction in my introduction. It was said that I'm the head of the Technology Development Acceleration Cell. I'd just like to specify that I'm now retired. I took premature retirement. I was heading the Technology Development Acceleration Cell. However, as that may be, there's a reason why I selected those two videos. What you saw in that video, in the first one, he was pouring liquid nitrogen over himself. And in the second one, he was pouring molten metal over himself. So this is essentially carbon nanotubes based aerogels, which being a very good insulator, it can be used for various things. The reason I selected this particular video, and I want to say this upfront, is because the gentleman you saw in the video, who's the innovator who made this, his name is 𝙬𝙙 𝙬𝙧𝙬. In fact, I can see him in the audience also. I could have selected many other people who are also there in the audience who I know are. So why I selected this particular video, one, of course, it's a global first, which was developed under IDEX. More importantly, Mr. 𝙬𝙧 is based at, he spends half his time in India and half in Indonesia. He's married to an Indonesian, he's holding 𝙬𝙤𝙀, I think is how you pronounce it. And he has just launched operations in Indonesia also under the name Wira Indonesia. So what I wanted to bring out is that as it is, the cooperation between startups in India and Indonesia is there. It is not, and I said I've just taken one name, but there are many others which I'm aware of. So cooperation between startups, both in joint R&D and other collaboration is there between companies in India and Indonesia. Probably if we give it a thrust and we give it focus attention, it can be taken to the next level. The second reason I wanted to show this particular video was because it's one technology, but one technology can have multiple applications. So this one obviously can be used for cold weather clothing, which you might not require in Indonesia per se, but a firefighting suit, hot and cold lagging for ships. Since aerogels are good insulators, it can also be used for camouflage because it will not be picked up on the IR camera. In the Navy, we've already inducted this as weapon covers because this fabric is also nanoporous but hydrophobic. So the water doesn't get in, but the water vapor can go out. So that's another, and it will have many, many civilian applications. I'm sure you can imagine the kind of applications this kind of a material can have in the, for example, the cold chain industry, whether for food or for vaccines. A technology which is developed can have multiple applications. So with that very small background, and this is something which was developed as a part of the IDEX sprint. I'm not sure how many of you have come across that, but if you just Google it, it was a backronym more than an acronym. It stood for supporting pole vaulting in R&D through IDEX, NIIO, and TDAC, the Technology Development Acceleration Cell. And it was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, in July 22. So IDEX started many years back, but I think it was taken to the next level through the Sprint initiative, where in a very, very ambitious way, we said that to celebrate our 75th year of independence, we will develop at least 75 technologies in the next 1 year. So IDEX started a few years before that. So what I want to emphasize here by giving this example is that, you start small, but you aim big. There's a saying which I heard that first you nail it and then you scale it. A grand idea which you want to start big may be doomed to failure. You start small, whether it is collaboration, whether it is your own defense industry. Start small, aim big, first nail it, then scale it. I'm sure this will be covered by the other speakers. I saw in their, what they'll be talking about. But you are all aware that Indian defense exports have grown in the last decade. They have grown 30 times. 30 times growth in 10 years is huge by any standards. In fact, in the first quarter of last year, I think year on year, the growth was 78%. The question is, what has changed? One is, of course, the very enabling government policies which are there. But more than that, I think that the world has changed. And that is something, and the world is changing. Technology is changing very fast. The pace of change of technology is ever accelerating. But more importantly, today, a small startup with a big idea can make a difference. The days where, it is the defense majors who could make a difference, I think those days are gone We've seen in the conflicts also, small equipment can make a difference. The second thing which I wanted to emphasize here is, and this is something not, I keep giving it in the Indian context, but I think it will be equally true for Indonesia, and it will be true for quite a few of the countries from the global south, if I can call them that. What happened with us is that we shifted from the agricultural age to the information age without spending sufficient time in the industrial age. So I'll say that again. We were in the agricultural age and we shifted to the information age without spending sufficient time in the industrial age. So the implication of that was that our ecosystem never developed to the extent it probably should have. So what that again means is that even if the transfer of technology was offered, the ecosystem probably was not developed enough to imbibe it. Everybody knows, and I keep giving this example again in all my talks, everybody knows how a gas turbine works or how a jet engine works, but you can't always make it. Probably because the metallurgy, for example, is not developed enough because we spent insufficient time in the industrial age. Which also means, as the world is now transiting to the information age, we have an advantage, or at least the disadvantage which we had between the global leaders and us has suddenly narrowed. So that is something which I think is true for India. I think it is equally true for Indonesia and quite a few other countries. I will not go into, the ambassador covered it quite well about, and I think the words used, even by the speaker before me, the words used were natural partners and there's no conflict. But when you talk about neighbors, people have a tendency to focus on the neighbors whom you share the land borders with. But neighbors can be of multiple kinds. You have the immediate neighbors, then you have the maritime neighbors, and India and Indonesia are the closest maritime neighbors. And let me use another term, strategic neighbors. The term used was that we've never had a conflict, but I think more than not having had a conflict, I don't think at the strategic level we have any conflicting issues or which can come up. So strategic neighbors, even if you're not close, as long as there's no conflict in your alignment, I think that itself is a big thing. So India and Indonesia are not only maritime neighbors, they are also, I think, strategic neighbors, and that is reason enough for us to collaborate. What can be the avenues for such collaboration? I think the word Sagar, security and growth for all in the region, sums up our vision. It was brought out again by the previous speaker, how there is quite a bit of congruence between our vision and your vision. The names might be different in the local language, but the idea behind it is the same and has been for quite some time. So what I think, so let me give some actionable points. One is, of course, joint development is something which, given that both the countries want to focus on self-reliance, so joint development would be a good idea. Having said that, there is also a need for export facilitation and industry interaction. And this need not be, and this could be done either through the existing forums like the staff talks or the various mechanisms which are there, aided by both the embassies, or at the think tank to think tank level, which is why I'm very happy to see the ongoing discussions between ISI and the National Maritime Foundation. But there is scope for collaboration is what I wanted to bring out, and not only in big firms, especially in the startups. And why I'm emphasizing startups again and again. One, of course, the startups are much more agile, they move much faster, and they have the capability to deliver, especially as the world shifts, as I said, to the era of algorithmic warfare. And more importantly, if you want genuine collaboration, it has to be a win-win. It has to be a win-win means it has to be mutually beneficial. It cannot be a give and take or a one-way street. So a startup is also hungry for orders. So it is, if you talk to, we've heard of many instances of technology denial, for example. But one, if the two countries are aligned, and the question of technology denial, and if it is a win-win, and the startup needs the orders as much as you need the equipment, I think that creates a win-win. And the last point, if I can just, because somebody mentioned about the geopolitics and how we've seen how things have changed in the very recent past. But the Indian equipment, if you're talking about imports from your side and exports from our side, I think the defining thing about Indian equipment would be that it would come with no strings attached. And as I said, the scope for collaboration, not only export facilitation either way, but also joint development. And for joint development, if I can make one suggestion, one concrete suggestion for both ISI and NMF when they're working on their study, it would be possibly to see IDEX, which is that Innovation for Defense Excellence, which I mentioned earlier, IDEX and IDEX Print. We could possibly have a system worked out where startups from both the countries are given joint challenges, or they collaborate beforehand and work mutually on solving a problem which is given out by either or both of the countries. We have a similar system with the US. You might have heard of it, the INDEX, which is there, which is the collaboration between the US DIO and the Indian the IDEX, the Defense Innovation Organization. So if we can have a system like that with the US, I see no reason why we cannot have it with Indonesia, who, as I mentioned, is not only a neighbor, who's not only a maritime neighbor, but is also a strategic neighbor. We are natural partners. That is something which we need to start thinking about. With that, I have finished. Thank you very much. And I am sorry I will not give you a dad joke. People are liable to turn, likely to turn violent.
Thank you so much, Commodore. I think you raised some really good points, and nowadays that innovation on defense tech is not only conducted by big players, but also by defense startups. And this is quite interesting because I think defense startup has created like some of like remarkable innovation in the defense industry. And another point is that joint development is important, but collaborations are not only conducted in the higher forms or big forms, but it is including a small form of collaboration, including academic communities and startups. And it has to be mutually beneficial, which is quite a very interesting point. Thank you very much, Commodore, for your presentation. So next, the third speaker, I would like to invite retired Major General Jan-Pieter Ade to present its presentation. So I would like to introduce Major General Jan-Pieter Ade. He is a retired Major General in the Chief Operating Officer of Pinhantanas, or Ketua Harian Pinhantanas, representing Indonesia's private defense industry. He promotes defense sector growth through international cooperation and advocates for modernizing military procurement to enhance national defense capability. And I think Major General Jan-Pieter is a scholar soldier. So aside from his career in the military and in Prihantanas right now, I think he's one of the prolific writers and prolific readers, and he is often invited to academic events to present his thought. So without further ado, audience, please welcome Major General Jan-Pieter Ade. Major General, the floor is yours.
Ira, and very good afternoon to all distinguished participants without naming one by one. And I'm very delighted to be part of this seminar, allowing me to share perspective on the topic we discussed just now. So I choose the topic, the title is Indonesia Military Modernization and the Need for Defense Industry Cooperation with India to see how the two sides can jointly collaborate in a defense industry cooperation in the future. Next, please. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the three subtopics, the scope of my presentation. And next, please. The military modernization overview, I divided into several episodes during the era of Suharto, which about 30 years, where the defense capability did not receive much attention and therefore impacted the lagging behind of defense capability of Indonesia. After that, or subsequently, economic and monetary crisis occurred in 1998 that hit Indonesia very severe and took around 10 years for the country to settle the crisis. What happened was that the reduction in defense budget faced by the Ministry of Defense and the armed forces at that time, and therefore, consequently, defense capability program almost did not were not implemented. Right after that, United States imposed embargo and restriction to our military, and that made the capability and readiness of our armed forces being exacerbated. So, from that fact, the defense forces technologically, readiness, skill, and operationally were truly lag behind, and that's the background of why modernization is crucially important to our military. Next, please. Ladies and gentlemen, the armed forces gained momentum to develop its capability and strength during the era of President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono from 2010 through 2014 and continue by his successor, President Joko Widodo. So the objective of minimum essential force, or the minimum essential force itself, is a very minimum requirement for the armed forces to have sufficient capability that able to defend the sovereignty and the scope of modernization under the MEF was modernization of weapon system, both hardware and software. Sadly, that until the end of the MEF last year, the target achieved was only about 65%, so far behind the need. So, therefore, the modernization for Indonesia, not just about updating the weapons and capability, but more than the realignment of the military posture, the strength, the capability, and any other necessity, and including also the development or rebuilding of our defense industry, because without the presence of adequate defense industry in domestic, then Indonesia, by heavily relying on import goods and technology, in our armed forces would not be able to handle or cope with any situation that can occur in a very immediate time that need readiness. Next, please. So let us see whether India is a suitable partner for Indonesia in establishing and developing cooperation in the area of defense industry. The fact for both sides is India armed forces and Indonesian military have been closely interacted in many forums, namely ADMM+, both are the members of that platform, also in Indian Ocean platforms, in IRF, let alone intensive bilateral programs that the two armed forces carried out quite closely. However, despite the intensive interaction in defense industry, we do not see the intensive cooperation emerging or established within both sides. I would take one of the project to explain what kind of cooperation in the future that Indonesia and India can select and seek when possible for resources availability and the support of leadership policy. So medium tank project collaborated PT Pindad from Indonesian side and FNS from Turkey was a best practice to explain that when Indonesia implement an industrial cooperation in a very conceptual and well-prepared manner, then the project would succeed and produce a good result. So I named some of the types of cooperation that India and Indonesia could consider. And these are also explicitly stated in many documents, including in the law number 16 on 2012 on defense industry of Indonesia, including joint R&D, joint production, TOT, and even counter trade. So cooperation with India, in my view, is very significant to Indonesia. India can be a model for Indonesia in rebuilding its defense industry and chasing or pursuing technological mastering from key technologies. But how to reach the self-sufficient and present that in Indonesian side is a very challenging. While in Indonesian side, self-sufficiency has been proven, has been presented in the recent years in India, and therefore, when Indonesia and India can look each other and start to build technological and defense industry cooperation, to me, one of the benefits is that Indonesia can learn from India how the country can reach the level of self-sufficiency in defense system and technology, which up until now, Indonesia is heavily dependent to foreign products and technology. And also integrating acquisition of weapon system with the industry would also be another benefit that Indonesia would gain from. Next, please. Distinguished participant, these are some information I took from India's development, and therefore Indonesia may also learn this, because similarly the construction of defense industry in India may also be found in Indonesia, and therefore we also have some major players. Also, the size is not as big as India's major players. But the point is that the expanding of manufacturing capability in India which is not seen in Indonesia, and also the role of the smaller player in very specialized needs would be best practice that Indonesia could take from. So invest in advanced manufacturing technology and R&D for state-of-the-art in defense technology has to be focused by Indonesia for the benefit of the bilateral cooperation that we are discussing and promoting for Indonesia in the future. Next. The transformation in India defense industry and also make in India.
We can also explore this, but there is any operational.
Okay. Transformation in Indian defense industry, particularly Make in India initiative, was absolutely critical to be adopted by Indonesia in developing its strategy and policy to have a self-reliance for domestic industry. So I took this, or I really impressed of this concept, and I many times read this with not feel tired. Very impressive. Next, please. Now, benefit of the cooperation that Indonesia could take from India first is that because India has been very successfully built its indigenous defense industry, and the reduction of import is very high on where the supply from domestic products made by local or indigenous company, both public sector undertakings and private sector, this has to be also intensified and specifically conceptualized by Indonesian policymakers in MOD or in various industries that Indonesia has. So the progress and achievement, unfortunately, of the cooperation is very low, given that since 21, India and Indonesia has established a defense cooperation, and within that framework, about 8 GDC, Joint Defense Committee, has been held, and last year was in India. Perhaps this year would be Indonesia host that meetings. Sadly, again, that very high level platform could not drive any concrete activities where cooperation, which is tangible, could not be presented. So therefore, for the sake of our discussion this afternoon, this have to be seriously follow up and bring both sides intensively to a closer communication and discuss a very robust steps how cooperation can be made in the near future. Thanks to both leaders of the countries, which recently have met in India, and it demonstrated the importance of the relations of the two countries for the interest of the security of the region and also for the interest of respective countries, the India and Indonesia. However, I also encounter several challenges. For instance, perhaps this would be one of delicate issue, but I have to raise that in the future, whenever the leader change, Indonesia would see the relationship with India could be challenged by the relationship of India's neighbor, that is Pakistan. But the two countries can be united in common interest how to secure their territory against this common threat posed by China. So, with that, then the cooperation in industrial realm is critically important for both countries. I also present several actors for our colleagues from India to understand. With regard to defense acquisition, in Indonesia, there are at least or more than 6 institutions involved and have critical influence in determining any decision of procurement or acquisition or even the cooperation itself. One is the MOD and its circle, the TNI headquarters, Chief of Staff and his circle, the Ministry of Finance. This relates to the allocation of budget and planning agencies, also the Commission one, and 𝐾𝐾𝐼P, my colleagues, Dr. Makmur is one of the members. Next, please. The last 2 slides will explain and to underline the importance of Indonesia that can have another benefit or additional benefit. For public sector industry in India, it is dominated about 60% companies, while private players are about 40%, but both are the key drivers for innovation and technological advancement. They work collaboratively and support each other by the leadership of national figures that promote the Make in India, which is very strong. Conversely, in Indonesia, public sector and private sectors cannot work collaboratively in a conducive way, and therefore the competition emerged in business. We also have some companies, but in India, we could see here, hopefully the data is accurate, about 16,000 companies. And for 16 PSU is public service undertakings with 430 license. We do not have the last one, the license company here. And 70% of the needs for the armed forces in India provided or supplied by indigenous defense industry. This is also our dream, the Indonesian dream, where the import, which is now about 80% of the total procurement, can be reduced accordingly. Next, please. My last slide is that I'm amazed with the twin policy reform for self-reliance, which is progressing very well. This figure shows that by 2021 to 2022, import that India made was about 30%, and the domestic supply was about 63%. 1 year later, the increase of the domestic supply was about 12%, and the reduction occurred in import. Indonesia, on the other side, trying to reduce the level of import, but up until now, is still very high. That was about 80% for import and only maybe less than 20% of the total procurement for defense equipment supplied by our local industry. Next, please. So, my message, and in reference to the Defense Expo that brought about 36 companies from India, 12 PSU and 24 private sector in Jakarta last year, could be the testimony how advanced the product, technology, and level of maturity that India's industry have achieved. So basically, no wonder there is no doubt for Indonesia not to look India, given that the distance is very close. And more than that, India, based on my discussion with my colleagues, India will award it what is called transfer of technology. License can also be discussed. Last but not least is financing. The credit export will also be facilitated for Indonesia as a good neighbor. So I'm not promoting India. I'm not the agent of India's company, but I'm telling the truth. That's to end my presentation. I return the microphone to Mbak Aira. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Major General, for the aspiring presentation. I think that is very interesting because there are several points that is raised by your presentation. I think the first one, that Indonesia is still have to strengthen its domestic production capability through self-reliance and self-sufficiency. And we have to avoid dependence on the external suppliers, because actually, I think like almost many of defense technology is still reliance on like other suppliers. Only around like 30% or something, it is actually like produced domestically. And I agree that India can be a model for Indonesia in rebuilding its defense industry, in developing key technology. And one important thing that you raised is R&D is important, and especially deciding the state of art in defense technology research. That's very interesting. Thank you very much, Mr. John Peter. So next, last but not least, we will invite Captain 𝙬𝙀𝙀 to give his presentation. But before that, I think I would like to introduce Captain 𝙬𝙀𝙀. Captain 𝙬𝙀𝙀 is the defense attaché at the Indian Embassy in Jakarta, Indonesia. And in this capacity, I think he plays a pivotal role in strengthening defense relations between Indonesia and India. His presence today underscored the commitment to enhance bilateral military cooperation between both countries. And one thing for sure that I know about Captain 𝙬𝙀𝙀 is that he is a fan of Javanese wayang. Apparently from Captain 𝙬𝙀𝙀, I learned that many of the Javanese wayang is actually adapting stories from mythology in India, which is quite interestingly, I think one of the most important and most well-known mythology of them all is the Mahabharata. I think that underscores like the close relations and historical relations between Indonesia and India. So I'm excited to hear Captain 𝙬𝙀𝙀's presentation. Without further ado, Captain 𝙬𝙀𝙀, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'll just put it on presentation. Is the presentation visible?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu, Shalom, Namo Buddhaya, and Ramadan Kareem to all. Yang Hormati Bapa Sandeep Chakravarti, Dubes India, Yang Hormati esteemed panelists, officials from KEMHAN, TENI, 𝐾𝐼, ministries and independent organizations of Indonesian government, MOD India, our partners ISI Indonesia, members of Academia, Bapa, Ibu, Selamat Siang. At the outset, 𝐾𝐼 India thanks ISI Indonesia, who's conducting this webinar on a very important aspect of Indonesia-India defense industry cooperation. The title of the webinar is also most apt: Bridging Forces, Unlocking Indonesia-India Defense Industry Cooperation. And why do I say that? Let's take the first term next. Bridging forces. So let us look Indonesia and India in the macro context. While it has been alluded to by the previous speakers and also Ambassador of India, we both are part of G20, two of the fastest growing big economies in the world. Very large population. India is the largest and Indonesia being the fourth largest. We also have a very young median age, around 28, 29 for the foreseeable future. For next 25, 30 years, our population is going to be young. So we have a human capital dividend. We also have a strategic location. There are other important factors, but one very important aspect which is usually overlooked, but this occasion, this webinar, we have spoken about it a lot, is our proximity. We are neighbors, only 80 nautical miles from Sabang and Indira Point, very close maritime neighbors. So we need to bridge our forces, our resources, and our efforts. Next. And the second aspect is unlocking. This also is the title of our webinar. And here again, I repeat, it's a very apt term. Why do I say again, this is apt? There are no two countries of this scale who have so much convergence. Although Ibu Ira had mentioned about a lot of information flow from India to Indonesia, Mahabharata, and a lot of Japanese culture. But I also have to tell you, there's a lot that India also gained from Indonesia. In fact, the art of steam cooking and a very popular dish called idli and even rice was introduced to India from Indonesia. So we are all aware of our historical connections, cultural exchanges, and how Indonesia and India collaborated with each other. And the flow of ideas and influence was both ways and mutually enriching. In modern times, the convergences are also huge. We both are non-aligned, non-bloc countries, part of BRICS now, key players in South-South cooperation, and we are big democracies and just held very successful democracy and transition from one government to the other. In our case, continuation. There are also no divergences at any level, which again was alluded to by some speakers before. And most importantly, we have the same goal, which is to improve the standard of living of our people and achieve the vision of Indonesia EMAS and Viksit Bharat. That is Golden Indonesia and Developed India, Bharat. Within 100 years of our independence, that is 2045 for Indonesia and 2047 for India. Because the colonial rule, we became poor and at many levels, we got detracted. We are also the Asian brothers and sisters and at the cusp of realizing our great potential. So together with our growing GDP, natural resources, human capital, and strategic geography, we only need to unlock. And here, to achieve our vision, our economy needs to grow, and our idea to have a strong defense, stable and safe environment is for our economy to grow so that our standard of living of people can improve. The partnership potential, therefore, between our two nations is exactly the terms of reference given to me by the organizers. Potential areas for Indonesia-India defense industry cooperation. These are the terms of reference given to me. How fast is the Indian defense industry developing? Is India ready to engage with Indonesia as a defense partner? Is India's growing defense sector compatible with Indonesia's needs and security demands? In which areas can Indonesia and India expand defense industry partnership the most? Are there interoperability issues? Next. So before I address those terms of reference, there is one more important aspect that it is pertinent for me to mention here after observing, serving in the embassy and seeing the 𝙬𝙤 and the ecosystem here. That Indonesia and India defense ecosystem is also very similar like everything else. India has military hardware products and systems from all the major defense equipment manufacturers. We have systems from Russia, US, Europe, within Europe, France, UK, Germany, Czech, Italy, so on, South Korea, Japan, and even Ukraine. And I see the similar kind of range and scale in Indonesia, with which we have our own incumbent problems of supply chain, life cycle cost, and non-availability of spares, obsolescence, and so on. So the range and scale of such inventory in all three armed forces, Army, Navy, and Air Force, is overwhelming. And the steps have been taken to standardize and achieve self-sufficiency wherever possible. In addition to integrating these various systems from so many OEMs in a single platform or network. In fact, Indonesia and India also have a lot of common inventory. We both operate automatic gun, Sukhoi 30s, Hawk. We already have two squadrons of Rafale, and very soon Indonesia will be getting the first consignment of Rafale aircraft. And soon to be built Scorpion submarines here. We are already operating 6, and 3 more are going to be built with AIP. And there are many more areas where I'm sure if we go deeper, we'll find a lot of common inventory. So, without answering the terms of reference as yes or no, it will be evident that all the criteria are met as we go through my presentation for next 7 to 10 minutes. The potential thus in the area of Indonesia-India defense industry cooperation is immense. Next, please. And one more important thing before we go to discuss on the defense industry ecosystem of India is to understand what has transformed India itself. But defense industry will and does not operate in isolation from the civil industry. It is a systemic thing. The roads, the ports, the infrastructure, the grains, the education, the intellectual property, all of this plays a role in various aspects of nation building, including defense. And the slide is more or less self-explanatory. And our GDP has risen. We are the 5th largest now, $3.5 trillion and growing. And growth rate of India is right now having the largest growth rate of a big economy. And we are going to have a very huge population who are in the working age. And as I had mentioned earlier, our median age also is very the Indian infrastructure has also played a very big role in helping many industries, and defense being one of the beneficiaries. There has been exponential growth in the metro coverage, in highways, in port handling capacity, aviation, waterways, and education institutes. This is important because these IITs and IIMs and AIMS, which are mentioned at the right bottom, are our centers of excellence for technology, management, and healthcare. And these are also important aspects in nation building, which eventually contributes in all sectors, and defense being one of them. Next. And we have the world's 3rd largest startup ecosystem. India contributes 1 out of 10 unicorns, which is more than $1 billion valuation. And we have a lot of startups being raised on a daily basis. And Commodore Golaya had mentioned about IDEX. So this is one very unique institution which has been set up in that is Innovation for Defense Excellence. And this has seen many small, micro and medium enterprises, even young college students who have just finished their engineering graduation, attempting to solve a problem which is thrown to them. And the period between someone coming with a solution and eventually signing a contract is as less as 1 year. Next. And this has been spoken before, so I'll just flash it for 5 seconds for everyone to go through it, and then we'll move to the next slide. Next. Yeah. So the vision that we have from our political leadership is that we have to be a fully developed nation by 2047, which is coinciding with 100 years of our independence from colonial rule, and for which we intend to grow, or we have an ambition to grow at more than 7.6% per annum, and to increase our per capita income to $22,000. In fact, presently India's per capita income is half of Indonesia, because we have a huge population. Although our GDP is high, but because of the population, our per capita income is quite low. And to increase the industrial sector to 30% of the GDP. And we have this large population dividend who is going to be in the working age group, and to develop world-class infrastructure. And we have to make in India, make for the world. That is our aerospace and defense sector. Next. Next. So this is a short overview of the defense sector, which also includes our aerospace. So we have made we have made several reforms of the defense sector. We have allowed FDI. So there can be foreign ownership of a company in India operating in defense sector. So 74% is an automatic route, and in some cases even 100%. And IDEX has been spoken before, and some statistics, we are second largest armed forces. We have a live situation in many of our border areas. So the equipment and the solutions that we are looking for is not for a prospective use. It is being used actually on a daily basis, because we have a live situation. We have had some casualties with our neighbors before on a periodic basis due to our insurgency and militancy. There is casualty on a periodic basis. So we are in a live situation. So the products, equipment, and solutions that we are designing for, it is for practical use. So the production is up to around $15 billion in this last financial year. We want to, of course, scale it up yearly. And one important factor is almost 25% of our defense budget out of 76 billion, close to 20 billion has been allocated for modernization, which includes research. We also have a lot of production under licensing, which General Jan Peter had mentioned. So we have production of Scorpion under license. We have production of automatic gun. And likewise, many other equipment, subsystems, pneumatic, hydraulic, avionics are being produced under license, including Sukhoi 30. Next. So while there is focus on Make in India, the reforms had encouraged us to indigenize and to innovate, and for corporates to do business more easily. And it also helped in getting investments from foreign countries. The fifth point is something that we should focus upon. In addition to indigenizing and making it in India, we are also open for partnership for co-development and co-production. So in case there are any avenues for India and Indonesia to do a co-development, research and production, we'll be definitely open for it. Next, please. So we have 16 DPSUs, again mentioned by General Jan Peter and some speakers before me. And the defense sector was open to private for a long time, but for last 10 years to around 15 years, there has been actual involvement of private sector. And with IDEX and certain such policy reforms, even micro, small industries could get in. Earlier, to have any kind of traction in defense industry, any company had to have deep pockets. They had to sustain their program for at least 5 to 10 years. Small, micro and medium industries could not have that kind of capital to keep pumping in research or development without any contract and order. But the reforms allowed these small players to get in. They could start making something very, very basic like washer or some small hydraulic or pneumatic system to even bigger systems like small satellites and things. So this reforms have helped in tapping into the potential of micro, small and medium enterprises in our country. Another unique factor of Indian research and development in defense is that all DRDO labs are under Menhan. So Mantri Partahanan, unlike SOEs here, they probably put to BUML. So in our case, the funding and the control of the DRDO is under the Ministry of Defense, which means under the Minister of Defense. So the research and development and the user are under the same umbrella. So this is something which we had from right from the beginning, and of late it started paying dividends. Next, please. This as mentioned before, we have 16 DPSUs. They have a good value of production. Now, India is a huge country, and like I told before, we have live situation, and our requirement is from the most the smallest of military component to satellites and nuclear submarines. So our defense PSUs are equivalent of SOEs here, like Pete Len, Pete Pindad, Pete Dahana, and Pete Pal, and they make all systems for all kinds of requirements for our armed forces, so Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. Next, please. And now, the previous slide had mentioned about the SOEs. This is about the private players. You can see the contribution of private players is steadily increasing, and the range and scale also has increased. There were certain areas where private players were not usually coming in, but now they are also coming in, including for missiles, for ammunition, armaments, high technology, AI. So private sector is equally clutched in to provide equipment from the most basic to the most high-tech for our armed forces. Next, please. While India is still if not the largest, one of the largest importer of defense equipment systems, our exports have fortunately started increasing steadily. We want to start exporting more, and so this has got dual benefit. In addition to getting revenue for our companies, it is also helping in making the products cost effective for our own military. Most of the startups, our private industries and DPSUs, if they are able to sustain their product line by having export orders, that helps in making the product cost efficient for our own armed forces. Likewise, if we are going to have partnership with other countries like Indonesia and going to have co-production and export to a third country, so India, Indonesia, joint production, for example, sells to Vietnam or Malaysia or Philippines, it brings down the cost for all the stakeholders. It also helps in furthering the R&D of these companies. So it is a positive loop. and it is not detrimental for other country. It just helps helps all of us. And being like what Ambassador had mentioned, being Asian brothers and neighbors here, our idea is not to replace a European OEM with an Indian OEM and try to do the exact same thing. We genuinely want to share experience, do R&D together and produce together, so that our ultimate aim, which is to improve the standard of living of our people and keeping this region stable and secure, is achieved. Next. And these are presently forming most of our aerospace and defense exports. In aircrafts, it's LCA, Hindustan 228 is Dornier, aerostructures, and naval ships, fast and boats, OPVs, FACs, coastal service system, coastal radar systems, bulletproof jackets, helmets, ammunition, lightweight torpedoes. This is a generic list. And for Indonesia, I have a slide. We have a specific list where there are no embargo, no rules. In fact, Indonesia is cleared for export up to any level. There are certain products we don't give to many countries, but in the case of Indonesia, there are no restrictions. I'll come to the list. Next. Now, we have also made two defense corridors. They act like a kind of an ecosystem where the defense companies can be nurtured. They have huge highways. They have got good connectivity. So this again goes into showing that our capacity and infrastructure is trying to augment our defense ecosystem. Next. And to reiterate what Dugas had mentioned, that we believe world is one family. The idea is not to replace one OEM and become another seller. We want to share and care. There are opportunities for co-development, production, export to mutually agreed nations. And India is open to facilitate industry to have partnership within India or the partner countries, including transfer of technology, transfer of knowledge, development of social skill sets, and employment potential. Here, another important aspect is what we have learned through TOTs with the running projects like Scorpion. While the TOT is part of the contract, but we still have had a huge learning in absorbing the TOT and actually learning, how the transfer of technology can be absorbed. While the TOT in a contract is an obligation and a set of manuals or books, but to translate that into achievable goals for capability development is a completely learned activity. We are ready to even share that aspect of TOT because we understand for Scorpion project in Petepal, Surabaya, TOT is part of it. But one thing is being in contract, and another thing is to actually imbibe that into our defense ecosystem. So we're ready to even explore sharing those knowledge. Next. And now we are coming to some specific areas which is part of my terms of reference for Indonesia-India partnerships. Yeah, next. Just before that, so we have had an MOU right from 2001, and it got elevated to comprehensive strategic partnership in 2018. And General Jan Peter had mentioned about our JDCC. So we have had many iterations. We're likely to have one more JDCC this year in Indonesia. We have very, very periodic and very high frequency military cooperation in staff talks, bilateral, trilateral, multilateral exercises. We just had Komodo. We have had so many multilateral exercises in India like Milan. So there's been participation. Our think tanks participate. We participate in our workshops, the coordinate patrols. There's a lot of high-level delegation visits. Chief of Navy visited in December. Chief of Navy Kasal visited India in January. And we all know President Prabhu went as chief guest. Very soon we are going to have high-level delegation from Indonesia visiting India, and likewise. So we participate in each of these different exhibitions. Next. So these are some areas. It is not comprehensive, but something it comes to your mind immediately is MRO and spare support for Russian equipment, origin equipment. We have licensed production of Sukhoi and certain other platforms like me, and we have common inventory, and Russian equipment also standardized in many of their other platforms. So we can look at areas where we can partner in this. And we have successfully developed light combat aircraft, light combat helicopter, advanced light helicopter, armed version called Rudra, and this towed artillery guns, armored fighting vehicles. The list is there. I'll just flash it for 5 seconds. You can go through it. There are certain aspects I want to discuss in detail. Just coming in subsequent slides. Next. So these are the equipment that we are exporting. Next. Both India and Indonesia are troop contributing countries for United Nations, and United Nations Charter of Duties require certain specific kind of inventory. So we have armored vehicles, we have safety gear, we have personal protection gear, and so on and so forth. So we can look at partnering in such endeavors also. Next, please. Next. Next.
Captain Ship, I'm sorry, but the time remaining is 2 minutes. If you could wrap up the presentation in 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Thank
I'm
you.
reaching there. Yeah. So one important aspect about this slide is all the products that you see here are made by our private companies. Next. And most of these companies are selling to US. Next. Drone simulators, anti-drone. Now it is due to the present situation in Russia and Ukraine, we know the importance of a drone and anti-drone. So many such industries have come up, and what we are showing is some of the prominent ones. Next. Next. So this slide I will take some time, but quickly I will just want to explain that we had mentioned about the spares MRO support for Su-30 and about light combat aircraft, ALH, and light combat helicopter. We have offered BrahMos missile systems. In fact, what we have offered is something which are not offered anybody else. We also offered the naval variant, that is BrahMos fitted on the ship. And on successful completion of the naval variant and the coastal battery, India is also considering offering BrahMos air version for Indonesia, because we have integrated BrahMos with our Sukhoi, and Indonesia also has Sukhoi, so it can carry BrahMos. And we already have Rafale. Our BrahMos next generation, which is going to have a smaller form factor and lesser weight, is capable of carrying the BrahMos next generation. That too will be offered to Indonesia, which these are the kind of capability we are offering to Indonesia and not offering to anybody else. And BrahMos, we all know, is the best supersonic missile presently in the world. And we also have Akash missile and Astra air-to-air missile, which are integrated with our Sukhois. Next. Now, this certain technologies which are more apt for India and Indonesia, or in some cases more for Indonesia than India, although developed by India, than other countries, like this navigation with Indian constellation. So this is for positioning, timing, and navigation purpose. It has got accuracy more than GPS, and this service can never be denied. We had a situation in '98 where we were denied the availability of global positioning systems due to geopolitical issues. And with that, we have learned that we need to have our own capability. At the same time, we are offering this to our friendly countries without a possibility of ever denying it. So, because like Ambassador told, we don't replace one supplier and become another one with the same incumbent problems. These kind of solutions are being offered where we don't make our partners go through the same problems. We have already constructed 6 Scorpion submarines, and 3 more are being made with AIP. 𝐿𝐵 is required to make 2. So this is a very ideal partnership model where whatever we have learned in manufacturing, constructing of the submarine can be shared with Indonesia. We have very unique and the only airdrop artillery guns made by an Indian company called 𝙤𝙙𝙙𝙤 𝙀𝙗𝙗. It is very peculiar to Indonesia because of the terrain, because of so many islands here, and the transportation of this kind of artillery gun is so much easier, and it can be just airdropped, and within 25 to 30 minutes it's ready for operation. And it may not be relevant to many other countries, but for a country, archipelagic country like Indonesia, it's more relevant. And the same goes for 5G tactical network. Again, being an archipelagic country, it's very difficult to give mobile connectivity, and even more difficult to have a mobile tactical network. So India has developed a 5G tactical network. This is not often talked about because we are not offering to everybody. There's another area of cooperation, very, very unique solution for Indonesia. And of course, last but not the least is so much Russian equipment that we both have in inventory, maintenance and upgrade. Next, please. Yeah, thanks. Thank you. That was my presentation. I hope I could stick to the time limit.
All right. Thank you very much, Captain Schiff, for your interesting presentation. I think we could see several points from Captain Schiff's presentation, which is we see that India and Indonesia has a long-standing history and possess many similarities in culture, and apparently the defense ecosystem is also similar. And India defense ecosystem has developed like in the last decade, and there are some lessons learned is to indigenize, to innovate, and easiness in doing business, especially the export and import. I think some innovation from small startup is very interesting from India, and I think our collaboration can start from a small thing and it could grow into something bigger in the future, hopefully. So thank you so much. We have heard the presentation from our 4 panelists, and I think this is questions, and I see that there are some audiences that has already submitted their questions in the chat box. So I would like to invite some of the participants to deliver their questions live in this platform. First of all, I would like to invite Rohit Dandal from Iron System PVD Ltd. He has a question for Major General John Peter. So, Mr. Rohit, if you're there, kindly open your mic and you can deliver your questions live. Mr. Rohit, are you there? if Mr. Rohit is unable to open his mic, probably I'll just read his questions right now. So his question is to Mr. John Peter Ate. The question is, we are an inertial navigation solution provider. We are having inertial sensor, which can be utilized for various platforms for navigation, control and guidance, and work in GNSS denied conditions. We would like to understand how we can participate as a subsystem first, and then we can invite the speakers to answer it one by one. So we would like to move on to the second questions. This one is from Dr. Hendra Manur for Commodore.
Defense systems of India, industrial defense that can be developed with Indonesia. As we know also that from the presentations of my friend, retired Major General 𝙄𝙤𝙙𝙙𝙬 regarding to the minimum essential forces. Well, how far the development of this integrating, or this is still only preliminary discussion. I think also that from the Indian defense attaché also has already described, I mean that explained previously regarding to the some strategic points that can be elaborated, collaborated together synergically. But in terms of the current issue about the Indo-Pacific geopolitical conditions, I mean, would it be India also make a persuasive connections with Indonesia, for example, armed forces like Army, Navy, or Air Force regarding to the what Indonesia defense need? Because we are talking about not only 5 years, but also for more than 10 years. Thank you, Dr. Aira, for the opportunity. Still I'm mute. Still mute.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm sorry. Sometimes we forget about this. Thank you very much, Dr. Hendra, for your interesting questions. And I think that second question was directed to Commodore Dr. Ǩăļăia. So we would like to invite the third questions from the participant, which is 𝙖𝙙𝙬𝙀𝙀 Kumari from DevTech and Green India PVD Ltd. She has questions for Captain Shiv Kumar. For 𝙖𝙙𝙬𝙀 Kumari, are you here?
Yeah, hi,
Yes,
thank you so
so
much. First of all, hello everyone. So my question is to Captain Shiv Kumar. I would like to ask that what collaborative measures should we take to enter the export market as a startup? And if we can get some key contacts so that we can approach for the same.
Sorry, can you repeat which market?
Export market, like in Indonesia.
Yeah, okay.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. What is your product?
So we basically deal in drones and in handle servicing, and also in some cameras. So we deal in automation, warehouse, and all these products.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, 𝙬𝙀𝙀, for your questions. All right, I think the fourth question, this is submitted through a Google form during the registration. This is from Atia, and Atia is also, I think, submitting this through the YouTube channel platform. Atia is from General Sudirman University, and this is a question for Dr. Makmur. And the question is, both Indonesia and India aspires to strengthen their defense industrial bases. However, in defense partnership, the more technologically advanced partner often holds greater leverage. Given India's achievement in developing BrahMos, Tejas, ENS Vikrant, how can Indonesia ensure that this partnership leads not just to procurement, but to a real transfer of strategic capabilities in defense technology? So this is talking about like the whole offset and transfer of technology, which is a very interesting questions. All right. Thank you very much. I think we have already one question for each speakers. We would invite probably Dr. Makmur to give the first answer to the question.
Thank you. I may not answer directly the question raised by our friend from General Sudirman University.
Yes, from General Sudirman University.
But in my understanding, we have a regulation that under law on defense industry, stating that there should be a counter trade and local content, and also offset instrument. Whenever Indonesia would like to procure weapon from other countries, if I am not mistaken, the total percentage of the three instruments is estimated to become 70 or 80%. I don't remember exactly. So, under this law, whenever we would like to buy or to procure weapon, then some or part of the money should come back to Indonesia. This is the instrument we have, legally speaking. And the second one, I think we need to underline the fact that we have another regulation stating that introduced recently through Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja, stating that it is possible for Indonesia to make a joint venture with foreign entity to strengthen and to promote our defense industry. But in my understanding, despite the fact that the regulation has been introduced, so far there has been no concrete outcome I have seen. Maybe it is still going on, and by referring to these two regulations, actually, I can say for sure that we are promoting cooperation not only for India. From the perspective of business, now is the time for implementation. So there is no more legal constraint. I have already told you that we have a kind of strong ground to promote our defense operation. That is at the strategic perspective, strategic interest. We have a commonality. Under that commonality, we need to have a policy consistency. And then after the policy consistency, we need not only the document about the regulation about what we are going to do, but also we need to have a policy execution. Now I think it is time for policy execution. Commitment will remain commitment if no concrete action is taken. That is my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That is a very interesting answer, actually. We're actually still struggling to ensure the offset and transfer of technology is doing and conducting well from all the suppliers that Indonesia has. So thank you very much, Dr. Makmur, for the answer. So next, I think I would like to invite Dr. 𝙬𝙙𝙙𝙬𝙧𝙬𝙬 to answer the question.
All right, thank you very much. I'll just answer point-wise, and not only this question, but there were some interesting points made in the other questions also. So I will just quickly give point-wise answers. One specific question which was asked to me about, are we just starting off? Yes, we're just starting off. But the good point about just starting off is that the whole, the scope is huge. The scope for expansion is limitless if you're just starting off. I do feel that we could have done much more earlier, but we didn't due to whatever historical reasons. Scope is huge. So let me give 3 examples here, and I will talk about opposite ends of the spectrum. So people mentioned, even in the questions, people asking about the subcomponent level. So if we talk about equipment where you and we are both trying to do obsolescence management, that means the spares are no longer available from the OEM, and we do have common equipment. It was mentioned by the defense attaché about how the Russian equipment, for example, just taking one example, the standardization is amazing. So now if that is the case, and if the volumes are very less, does it make sense for each of us to individually pursue that, where we know it is for a short time, but we have to keep the equipment running? So that is important. So there it may be better if you already indigenize something, or you've indigenized something, we could possibly, because this is not coming from the OEM in any case. So that is at the least, the lowest level of the spectrum. At the highest level, when I said we need to create a win-win, let's take an example. You are manufacturing ships or boats. You have, because of the geography which you have a huge requirement of, vessels of all kinds. And I'm not talking only about the naval vessels, but all kinds of vessels. Does it make sense for somebody to manufacture a vessel somewhere and then ship it to you? So I'm again taking just an example. If autonomous systems are the future, maybe if the boat is manufactured in Indonesia and the autonomous part is manufactured in India. So again, it is collaboration rather than exporting a full system. So that is the kind of an opportunity, I think, which we should explore and which is doable. And the last point, very, very quickly, is about the complete systems. So complete systems, when I'm talking about, it is an export of, so till now we've talked about the component level, we talked about collaboration where each side gives something to the system, but there would be a need, and we both are importing. We both are importing systems from various countries. So even if we, though it's been emphasized again and again that we're not trying to replace any OEM as a manufacturer, but even if you're talking about importing complete systems, in the long term, if you don't think short term, those equipment will also require spares. So as I said, start small, think big. So even if you have the spares being manufactured locally, collaboratively, that itself is a big plus. So I think these are the areas which we could explore. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much. So that's a very good points, actually. Thank you very much, Commodore Dr. 𝙬𝙙𝙙𝙬, for the answer. And next up, we would like to invite Major General John Peter to answer the questions. John Peter, the floor is yours.
Okay, to Mr. Rashid, thank you for the questions. The need for modernization for our armed forces is still large in the size of quantity and content. So, as I mentioned in my presentation, that the MEF up until last year was only achieved the target for about 65% 35%, which means that another 35% of the needs is still unhandled. So therefore, in terms of equipment, weapon system, and even subsystem, modernization still, open opportunity in a very large space. For Indonesian condition, many of our local industry can produce platform, but for system and subsystem to be equipped in the platform, mostly are imported. So your offer that as you own a critical subsystem that relevant to the needs of our modernization can be communicated to relevant channel, being through directly. If you have had representative in Jakarta, then you can go directly. If not, then you have your embassy. Here is the defense attaché, and also myself as the association of defense industry that also have close communication with the end user, including the Navy. We can be the people where you can reach to introduce or promote or pass the information of the system and subsystem that you have. Further communication we can establish. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak John Peter. Last but not least, would like to invite Captain Shiv Kumar to answer the question.
Yeah, thank you. So I of course got the question of Ms. Sakshi, what she asked me. And then I also went through the chat panel where similar questions have been asked by a lot of other Indian companies. So what essentially you're asking is that how can we sell our products, our equipment, our solutions in Indonesia, or how we can partner with Indonesian stakeholders. So that's essentially what many of you are asking. So here there are 2-3 things. First and foremost, what I observed when I came here is that general awareness of Indian solutions, equipment, and products is less in Indonesia. While the media and general public is aware about collaboration with Turkey, with US, with Russia, before 𝙬𝙬 issue happened on it, narrative of India was completely absent. Now that is not their mistake. It is because we were not present. We were not making ourselves, exposing ourselves to their market. We were not attending their Indo-Defense, which is a defense exhibition in Indonesia. We were not coming for many of their seminars. So generally the awareness of Indian products and solutions was low. That is what we are trying to change, not by being a marketing or a sales agent, simply trying to put things as honestly as we can, that see, this is the products that we make and this is what you want, and may the best product win. Especially in the case of Ms. Sakshi, you mentioned about drone, camera and all. So these have become highly contested space. There are many players in drone, anti-drone, thermal cameras, and the new buzzword is AI. So the lot of players are there. What we can do as embassy and as an institution is to give you a platform to come and present yourself and to make you aware that there are certain events coming up like Indo-Defense or some other, like we have Bali International Air Show, which was very, to be very honest, very poorly attended by Indian companies last year. Just because awareness was not there both ways. So neither is India aware that there is a huge opportunity for partnership here, neither is Indonesia aware of the huge defense industry that India has now cultivated. So that is first and foremost is the issue. Second, okay, now coming down to how to take it forward, having realize that there's potential, there are 2-3 ways. One is, of course, you come and attend the defense exhibitions. You have a booth. You are visible. People come and approach you, and you can progress it forward. It's like second way is that you find a channel partner. As per the requirement or I don't know if it's policy, but it's very popular that all foreign companies have a local channel partner who adds a lot of value to the proposal. He knows the policies, he knows the paperwork, and he's able to fill in the gaps that you are not able to as a company sitting in India. So if you find a channel partner, he represents you and he does it. The third thing is that we had requested SIDM and Pinhantanas to sign an MOU where these two societies who are basically aggregators of private Indian defense companies, and even need not even private, it can be even DPSUs or SOUs. So they have a single point window where we can approach and say that this is what I have. And I request both SIDM and Pinhantanas to facilitate the flow of information from the buyer to the seller to the buyer between two collaborative partners to be able to talk to each other. And these are the 3 ways that I can think of where we can cooperate and partner in different industries.
Thank you, sir. I have a question. So you talked about channel partners here. So is there a way, like, how can we get to that? Like, how do we know how to approach them or where to get the contact from?
Yeah, to be honest, it is not a very easy thing. So there are some channel partners who are more successful than others, and there are a few who are having prominence in one domain than the others. Like somebody would be very good at, let's say, land systems, and will not have much traction or network in maritime systems and so on and so forth. So this channel partner issue is something which is we are trying to resolve, to have a database of channel partners, and because to some extent the success of product lies in the hands of the channel partner. How active he is, how focused he is, and or he or she is, and how they're taking it forward. And this is something that we are trying to bridge, and we want to take a holistic and systemic approach towards it. That is why we requested SIDM and Pinhantanas to partner, where individually for you to interview 3-4 channel partners and say he's the best one for me or she's the best one for me, it's not that easy. But if you go to an institutionalized system and they understand what is your product, what is the potential, who is the right person to take it forward, and that is something that we want to build upon. So there is no clear answer that this is the right channel partner, because everybody will go towards it. And that also has happened. There are a lot of people who have gone to one person and he has got overwhelmed. And since the business is coming, the channel partner never says no. So he may have 50 companies, yet he will take 10 more. And for him, the more people under his kitty, the better are his prospects to sign a contract and eventually it's business. While some of them are here for the long run, but business is one of their motivating factors. So there is no simple answer. We have to look for a good channel partner. A systemic approach towards finding one is recommended. That is what we are trying to work on, and we are in the beginning of that stage. So hopefully soon in a year, we should have refined this.
Thank you very much, Captain Shiv, for your answers. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have to wrap up the Q&A section because we have exceeded our time limit. So before I give a wrap up on this discussions, I would like to invite each speakers to give 1 minute of a closing statement and to deliver your suggestion and input regarding Indonesia's and India's future of defense industry. Gentlemen, Probably I will give the opportunity to Commodore Dr. Arun Golaya first.
Thank you. The only point I would like to make, and if I can make it very quickly, that it's nice that we've started talking. It was mentioned that we need to raise awareness, but it is also time that we started acting. It's action which finally counts and not just talking. So while the interaction between the think tanks is good and it raises awareness, what I would propose, and this is just a proposal to both, the think tanks and maybe even the embassy, can we have something, because, participating in an exhibition for a small startup from both sides costs money. And if they do not have clarity on what exactly they're looking at, not many people would want to. Can we have something like we had it with SIDM in India? The Indian Navy had it. That means last Friday of every month and over a year, we had a virtual exhibition. So let the startups, because a number of startups here are saying that, they have a product and they don't know what to do. So maybe if you could just tie up, or maybe ISI could tie it up, give the startup just 5 minutes, 10 minutes to give a presentation on what they have. So when our startups are giving a presentation, your startups who could also be channel partners could be there and watch it, and vice versa. Thereafter, if you give people, because asking this one question, so if you see in the question answer thing, everybody's talking about we are this and we do this. Give them 5 minutes over a VC. Let the other people hear, and if there's mutual interest, then I'm sure they will take it forward by themselves. So that's the only suggestion which I would give.
Thank you very much, Commodore. Next, we'll move to Dr. Makmur Kliat to give a closing statement for 1 minute.
Thank you. I just want to say that global political situation is changing very fast, and we should not be a prisoner of the history. Let us see the future, and I think we could learn from India how they made a cooperation with Russia, and because the United States is shifting its policy vis-a-vis Russia, I think there is a new perspective now that we may have a cooperation with Russia by taking India inside the cooperation and how they have evolved the cooperation with Russia. I remember that few years ago, we would like to buy a Sukhoi, but because of that time, geopolitical situation was not supportive, then we postponed that agreement. But now situation is changing. The United States is closer to Russia, and this is the best opportunity for us to create a new relationship insofar as Indonesia, India, and Russia is concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Makmur. That's a very nice conclusion. Next up, we would like to invite Captain Shiv Kumar to give 1 minute remarks. Captain Shiv, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. So what I would do is that I'll try to say that the terms of reference given to me has been suitably addressed. That is how fast is Indian defense industry developing, which I could in a nutshell give you some kind of a brief overview. Is that India ready to engage with Indonesia as a defense industry partner? I mean, definitely so. Why not? And just now, what Pa Makmur Kliat had mentioned, that our partnership is not prone to vagaries of geopolitical fluctuations. We have more enduring kind of legacy and partnership and all convergences. So this is not a partnership which will flourish at one time and ebb at one time. It is going to only keep going ahead. And we are here as the long-term collaborators and partners as Asian brothers who want to keep this region safe, secure, and stable. For that, we need to have a strong defense to improve our economy. And we are here to share our lessons, R&D, transfer of knowledge, TOT, joint production. We are looking for partnership with you.
Thank you very much, Captain Shiv Kumar. Last but not least, we would like to invite Major General John Peter Ate to give his closing remarks.
Yeah, we have seen that the cooperation between our military is increasing in the recent decades, be it in the joint patrol or some other exercises conducted by both. So with that become the modalities for the government at the higher level to seek if exercise and other activities involving our militaries that would be the needs for a commonality of technology as well. While India or while Indonesia is still depending on sophisticated technology from other countries, why don't change the perspective to look to neighbors by which can assist, can also support any military activities, particularly with the interest or common interest to secure our Indo-Pacific, where both are the are or live together. Secondly, as Indonesia continue to work on its modernization, while, as I mentioned also, heavily dependent to foreign technology from other countries, with the presentation made this afternoon, we have seen there are so many areas that Indonesia can consider to supply from India with good quality, best technology, and good price, of course. Last but not least is, of course, the transfer of technology and financial scheme, which make easier to support the procurement would help. So this webinar is very helpful. Hopefully we can continue our contact in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, speakers, for very conclusive conclusion remarks. So if I could wrap up the discussion, I think there are several points that is we can actually summarize from this discussion. The first one being India and Indonesia is actually has similarities in terms of culture, politicals, and defense ecosystem. And currently, Indonesia is trying to achieve self-sufficiency, and collaboration has become an important aspect in it. We can learn a lot from India, especially in fostering innovations and R&D. So we can start collaborations from a very small thing, not only G2G, but it can involve other actors as well, such as scholars and private sector as well. Last but not least, I think transfer technology and offset is a very important aspect in the collaboration as well. So hopefully we could see further into that in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say thank you very much for your participation, and thank you for the distinguished speaker. You have shared like lots of knowledge for us today, and we can learn a lot from these discussions regarding the future of collaborations of India and Indonesia. Once again, thank you very much for your attendance and participation. I would like to extend my regards to the ambassador for the support and for NMF for the collaborations that we had today for this webinar. I would like to return the floor to our MC, Jeremiah. Jeremiah, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ira, and also to all our speakers today, Mr. Makmur, Commodore Arun, Mr. Jan Peter, and Captain Shiv. We definitely all have now gained deeper insights on the potential collaboration between both industries and nations, of which it can be a significant potential moving forward. Now, this marks the end of our webinar today, but before we end, we'd just like to invite ISI's advisor, First Admiral Retired Dr. Surya Wiryanto, to give the closing remarks. To Dr. Surya, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon. His Excellency Mr. 𝙬𝙘 𝙬𝙧𝙬𝙬, Indian Ambassador in Jakarta, ladies and gentlemen, participants of this webinar. I am Rear Admiral Retired Dr. Surya Wiryanto as an advisor for the Indo-Pacific Strategic Initiative. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for holding this webinar. which this webinar was, as mentioned before, initiated by Indo-Pacific Strategic Intelligence and the Indian Embassy in Jakarta. And the topic chosen was Bridging Forces, Unlocking Indonesia-India Defense Cooperation. I'm very grateful that the webinar attended by about 130 participants and can run smoothly. The speakers have conveyed their respective ideas regarding the topic they have given, which were very insightful. And also I saw so many questions arise in the chat box. It shows that much of the public attention and participation in this webinar. As we all know, in recent years, India has emerged as a potential partner for Indonesia in defense industry. India has shown outstanding progress with regard to its defense technology capabilities, as mentioned by the DA, guided by the free and active non-alignment posture in diplomacy. Potential defense collaboration with India may become a highly advantageous strategy for Indonesia. And today, the speaker has been explored how both Indonesia and India perceive this potential collaboration through this seminar. Distinguished participants, defense cooperation between Indonesia and India is increasing, as demonstrated by Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto visit to India in January 2025. During the visit, the two countries agreed to deepen cooperation in the areas of maritime and cybersecurity, defense manufacturing, and supply chain development. The important point regarding Indonesia-India defense cooperation, such as defense cooperation agreement, joint military exercises, defense industry cooperation, maritime security, Indonesia interest in the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile, also increasing economic and defense cooperation in an effort to defend, to find balance against China. Defense cooperation in Indonesia and India offer various of main benefits for both countries, including increased defense capability, independence of the defense industry, maritime stability and security, strong bilateral relation, role in diplomacy, economy, defense innovation ecosystem, and expanding bilateral defense agreement by increasing cooperation in the field of exercises and operation, as well as increasing the ability to maintain security. Also expanding on military modernization in Indonesia, such as expanding minimum exchange forces years 2010 until 2024, and the partnership with Indian Armed Forces in terms of operation, training, and exercise, and other benefit of those cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude my remark, let me thanks for all speakers, Dr. Mahmud Keliad, Commodore Dr. A.P. Golaya, retired, Bapak Major General retired Jan Peter, Captain Shiv Kumar, DA, and also moderator Ira for your support to the success of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Surya. So this marks the end of our event today. Now, to stay tuned with ISI and more events like this, we would like to ask and invite everyone to follow and subscribe to our social media. And we'd like to also remind you that we have ISI commentaries and welcome your opinion, writing, and opinion editorials there, of which for more information, you can visit our website, www.ec-indonesia.com, and follow our Instagram and ec_indonesia.ig, or our LinkedIn at Indo-Pacific Strategic Intelligence. Once again, thank you everyone for your presence in our event today. E-certificates will later be distributed for attendees, but to access this, kindly scan the QR from the exit form that is provided, or visit the link via bit.ly/ec-exit-ticket-1. That's once again, bit.ly/ec-exit-ticket-1, of which the link will also be provided in the screen and in the chat. See you again, everyone, in future ISI events. I, Jeremiah, bid everyone farewell and hopes that everyone has a good day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Shanti 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 Om. Namo Buddhaya and Salam Kebajikan. Good evening and namaskar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. Pak Surya. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Have a good
thank you,
day
everyone.
all. Look
Yeah,
forward to
Thank
having
you,
you
Pak
in the
Surya.
next
Thank you
easy
all.
session.
Thank you, Miss
Pak
Mbak
Puri,
Arya,
thank you.
Mbak Puri, thank you very
Terima
much.
Thank you very
kasih
much
Pak
for your
Surya,
Thank you
Pak
all.
Peter, Pak
Ya, Pak
Makmur.
Puri.
Don't forget
Thank you.
to scan the
Thank you.
barcode for anyone who wants the
Okay.
certificate, the e-certificate.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 To all remaining participants, you can fill in the link, and after that, you are allowed to leave the WebEx meeting today. Thank you, everyone.